part of the excitement about the blockchain is that it's so multidisciplinary, and it's why we can attract, a lot of, even though like the field is very technical, there are a lot of people from different fields because there are a lot of possible applications and a lot of societal applications as well.
Let me invite Professor Senior Lecturer Scott Chamberlain, who just recently made a transition from a private practice into academia, and he will give a talk about blockchain, smart contracts, and artificial intelligence down of the Clockwork Society.
Thank you. Look, thanks for the opportunity to talk to you guys today. It's really good to see some law students here. That's awesome. I teach in the ANU School of Legal Practice. I teach in the Masters of Legal Practice stream. I have two courses relevant to this, the Future of Legal Practice and Legal Entrepreneur. We try and take the changes that are happening in technology and completely reimagine how to handle legal problems. Most lawyers handle them matter by matter, and the challenge with technology is potentially you can design fantastic solutions that solve an end-to-end problem instead of just dealing with the scope of a matter. In the context of that, blockchain, smart contracts and AI are a technological suite that I think are going to have an enormous impact on the legal profession. And because lawyers are how we deliver justice, it has a massive impact on the justice system, and because justice is determined by Parliament and society and our laws, it has a massive impact on that and how we structure society. And what I want to present to you today are the first thoughts that I've begun tinkering with about this concept of what I call the Clockwork Society. And hopefully I'll explain to you what I mean by that as we go on. This is the vision many people have of blockchain in this space. It's this magical world. You would have heard the stories of the company that added blockchain to its name, the listed entity added blockchain to its name. It was a soy farm or something like that, and its share price went up by sort of 70%. Right, this magical thing. But blockchain is not magic, right? It's only useful in certain situations. And very often what's happening is that you're using blockchain where you should be using just a massively powerful database. But there are some elements of blockchain that make it a really useful innovation, particularly from a society-wide point of view. Today I want to talk about two things. One is blockchain, smart contracts, AI create a technological package that promises enormous shifts in wealth and power and will likely spark a new long war over the type of government to replace the nation state. I'll outline what I mean by that, but at present you'll all be aware that we're currently suffering tensions within society. There's lots of conflict, there's lots of lack of trust in our institutions, and I think that there's an argument that this is symptomatic that the nation state that we're used to, which is a highly centralised form of government, is coming to its useful end. And blockchain, this suite of stuff, promises to solve some of those problems. If you spend time in crypto, you'll see the Bitcoiners, the OGs as they call themselves, the original gangsters, they're libertarians. This is what they want. They want peer-to-peer society. They want the end of government. And they think blockchain's a way to get there. And I think to some extent they're possibly right. The second thing I'll talk about, this comes off the conversation we had at the cafe, is just to outline where I think there is room for you guys to usefully look at blockchain projects. There are lots of people doing blockchain around the world, over 2,000 ICOs, so there's lots of innovation in this space. There are areas where I think there is room for different and better innovation as opposed to just inventing the new latest way of managing consensus. So, part one, the revolution. In his book Homo Deus, Yuval Noah Harari outlines how what distinguishes humans from other animals. It's our capacity for what he calls the intersubjective. Right? There are realities which are objective. This thing exists. There are realities that are subjective. I am nervous, right, internally, but you guys, that's not your reality, that's mine. And then as humans, there's the intersubjective, which is what we agree amongst ourselves is real. And it's not real, but it is real because we agree that it's real and because we act like it's real. Gods, laws, money, writing, culture, stories, all these distinctly human things are intersubjective. And I raise this because when people say Bitcoin's not worth anything, these are the same people that think that, you know, this is $50. Well, it's just a scrap of paper with $50 written on it. What makes it real is the intersubjective. What makes it worth something is that we agree it's worth something. And this capacity for agreement is what has allowed for human progress over time. Those of you who spend any time in this space seriously looking at it will come across an intellectual, Nick Szabo, who writes very compellingly about the origins of money, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. It's the intersubjective that creates the capacity for what he calls social scaling. That is the capacity for us to interact with other humans that we don't know and don't trust, or don't have to trust. Our entire society relies upon, you know, you buy a car, you are trusting an enormous number of other people you've never met and will never meet. Trusting that they've done their job, trusting that that car works, trusting that it's safe, right? That's social scaling. We've got the institutions to make that happen. Social scaling, that capacity for collaboration is what allows for all the advancements, all the wealth creation. Advancements like money that improve our capacity for sharing information and what he calls trust minimisation. As examples, cultures and laws, right? Just that knowledge that I have a certain way of looking at the world and you also have that way of looking at the world helps me trust you, helps me interact with you even though I don't know you. We then invented numbers and ledgers. That was the first writing. Just writing stuff down. So-and-so owes this, 3 bushels of wheat, etc. Moved on to stories, the Homeric epics. We've got the Book of Dooms. This is the first codification of English law. And doom was just a law. The Domesday Book, which was the first effort to codify who existed in Britain and what their names, our surnames, if you're Anglo-Saxon by origin. The surnames originate from this book. It was given to you just so they could identify who you are, lock you down, know you exist and tax you. We've got Excel spreadsheets and databases and now the internet. All of this is increasing technology that allows us to work together with people we don't know and don't have to trust. Outside kin and clan. Our current tech has probably reached its limits. The internet was our latest breakthrough, and the point that Nick Szabo makes is it's scaled sharing of information but not trust. Right? The two elements necessary for social scaling, it only allowed for one of them. So now information is free, knowledge is cheap. It's everywhere. But the trust layer provided to make that all work is now increasingly complicated. Simple things like copyright, right? Here's my movie, you copy my movie, you show it, you email it, it goes around the world, multiple copies, there's no way of tracking who has the right, who can do it. You end up with massive class actions and movie companies suing lots of people and ISP providers trying to get hold of the internet data, lots of draconian laws just because they can't catch people. And what you end up with is what they call this, what Nick calls this off-chain trust layer. Right? It's the thing that makes all the institutions work. It's what allows you to trust everything else that you deal with in your life. It's government. It's bureaucrats, accountants, lawyers, police. And if you look around, it's just an ever-increasing layer of this rubbish in your life. As a practicing lawyer, you used to be a tax lawyer. Then you became an income tax lawyer and a capital gains tax lawyer and a GST lawyer. And there used to be sales tax, and there was sales tax on certain items and specialists in all those little areas and fields. The accountants, the lawyers, bureaucrats, the bankers, all of the middlemen and gatekeepers that make the trust layer work. They allow society to function. That's breaking down. The sign that's breaking down is simply that the gatekeepers are the more wealthy and the more powerful amongst us. The bankers, the lawyers, the accountants, Facebook and Google are now examples of this. Right? There's increasingly conflict, decreasing trust in an institution, and we're fracturing into online tribes that don't talk to each other. If you have online tribes, you're now back to us versus them. We've got even new ways of not trusting each other. This is the promise of blockchain: to solve the social scaling problem that the internet has given us. A blockchain computer is shared across many computers, each checking each other's work, reliably and securely executing instructions. Bitcoin is the proof of concept for the blockchain technology, and they applied that to money. If you spend any time in this space, you'll see the complaint is against central banks. I've seen an analysis that central bankers used to own something less than 10% of the stocks in the world, and they've now gone on to own something over 20, approaching 35% of the stocks in the world. So the central bankers who are printing all the money are also the ones who are buying all the assets, because they need to prop up the price of the assets because they're printing all the money. It's a leverage buyout of the ownership of the world, is how it will be presented in the cryptosphere space. But the point they're making is that you can't trust this trusted third party, the central bank, anymore. They just print the money. Ethereum is an example of the blockchain technology applied as a world computer. Ethereum is not set up necessarily to be a currency per se. Ethereum is gas, the price that you pay to run applications on the Ethereum blockchain. The key benefit of blockchain is they scale trust. What a blockchain essentially lets you do is confirm something is true without relying on a trusted third party. If I'm buying Bitcoin from you on the Bitcoin blockchain, I know it's Bitcoin, I know you own it. That's it. I don't need a central banker in the middle who's stamping it, who's certifying it as real Bitcoin. And the process by which it's created is transparent. We know how it happens. It's not forgeable. You can't give me Bitcoin and me believe it's Bitcoin and it not be Bitcoin if I'm buying it on the Bitcoin blockchain. We're doing this without middlemen or gatekeepers. That's the key innovation. And the kind of sub-features that we get out of this, it tends to be distributed. The knowledge is available to anyone. Right? You can check the ledger for Bitcoin's downloadable, for XRP it's downloadable. You can see what's going on. Everyone can know anything about the chain at any one time. And that is in contrast to our traditional systems where you've got to go and beg to the owner of the database in order to get access to the information. Right? If you've ever done a company search, it's this laborious process of paying ASIC $17 or $22 or $54 for a search fee just to find out who are the directors of that company. Right? That information on blockchain, everyone knows, and everyone can go see it. It's decentralised, which means anyone can use it. Now that's not necessarily true of all blockchains. There are things called permission blockchains, but largely we're looking here at permissionless blockchains. Anyone can use it. It's censorship proof. You can't go back and edit the ledger. You can only move forward in time, which means everyone can trust it. And these blockchains tend to work off a token. Right? So there's a digital token, which means everything can be tracked and valued. These four features allow for incredible flexibility when it comes to redesigning how we deal with very important aspects of our life. If we combine blockchain with smart contracts and also with AI, we end up with a concept I call the Clockwork society. Now, smart contracts are small apps that automate transactions on a blockchain. And AI is learning machines applying algorithms to large data sets to replicate or approximate decisions of similarly placed human beings. Clockwork society is the application of this technology suite to create a society that works through code and market dynamics, not through gatekeepers and middlemen. Right? It's the grand and glorious vision of what the world would look like if you never had to go to a middleman to get something done. If because you wanted to do something, you just whipped out your phone and made it happen. You want to launch a company, you make it happen. You want to find out who owns a particular car because it just ran you over, you make it happen. At the moment, you have to go to registries and middlemen and gatekeepers, and sometimes you don't get the data. The blockchain is distributed ledgers of truth. Digital tokens are instant micropayments. Smart contracts are automated conditional execution. And with artificial intelligence, I get automated conditional determinations. Right, with that suite, there is so much that I can do on the chain without human intervention. There's still a real world. There's the digital world. There's still an analog world. And so there's an off-chain trust layer. But it should be leaner, cheaper layer of humans dealing with the things that can't be dealt with on-chain. You're looking at all those lawyers, all those accountants, all those bureaucrats, all those bankers, all those police, and just collapsing it down onto the chain. One of the possibilities in government is that we can automate laws. At the moment, we publish laws as text, as legislation. What does that require? Middlemen, bureaucrats to manage it, lawyers to interpret it, judges to rule upon it, police to enforce it. Why? Because it's an intersubjective reality. The rules are only real because someone reads the rules and someone acts like the rules are real. And they can convince someone else to act like the rules are real. I make the point to my students very often that as a lawyer, what you're doing is akin to magic. I write the right words on a page, and the entire apparatus of the state will reorganise itself in order to protect my client's rights. I write the wrong words on a contract, and nothing happens. Or worse, the wrong thing happens. It's the reverse, right? So, do the right thing, you own this, and the state will reorganise itself to enforce your rights. That's quite a powerful thing. What we're talking about here is being able to translate that into code, where it's the machines that make the work happen. If you're a lawyer, law's not complicated. It deals with two things. What we agree exists, and the relationship between those things we agree exists. That's it. Things that are real, and rights and obligations between things that are real. With a blockchain, I get to the point of proving existence and ownership of something. Right? Bitcoin, it exists, it's on the blockchain, and you own it because it's in your wallet. Smart contracts and AI can regulate the relationship rules. Off-chain mechanisms can handle disputes and exceptions. And the main problem in this vision is moving from the real world to the blockchain, from the on-chain to the off-chain, that membrane. The problem, Bitcoin works because Bitcoins are created on-chain. The proof of work, the computer's grinding away on their mathematical problems, and every now and then one computer says, bingo, and all the other computers go, yes, you got the bingo, here's your coins, all right? But if I'm going to move something from off-chain to on-chain, I'm now back to the problem I was trying to avoid, which is I'm introducing counterparty risk. Trusted third parties. And a favourite quote from Nick Szabo, trusted third parties are security holes and lawyer magnets. Right, if you're in the law and you want to build a practice, look for trusted third parties you can sue when they get it wrong. Bankers, financial planners, lawyers, now we're into data breaches, privacy, all of that stuff. That's a trusted third party. They've got your private data. You're trusting that they do the right thing. And they don't. And they get caught. And the lawyers rub their hands with glee and off we go with a class action. And we spin the wheel and out comes money. That's not the desired outcome. And smart contracts and AI are something that may partly solve this problem of the trusted third party off-chain. You can imagine pieces of code, you can imagine sophisticated AI algorithms that help make determinations still within the black box of the blockchain, or as an augmentation to it, without having to get involved in trusted third parties. If blockchain obsoletes gatekeepers and middlemen, the ultimate gatekeeper is government. And so there's the potential that blockchain will massively impact upon the structure of our government and our society, if and when it really gets going. The blockchain space has projects dealing with money, Bitcoin, and then secret dark money, Monero or Zcash. It's got projects dealing with identity, putting people's identity on the blockchain. Privacy, allowing you to sell, tokenise access to your personal data. Ownership, whether it's real estate or other assets, and even voting. So why government? All of these things can be handled by decentralised, trust minimised processes. What's government going to do? Government doesn't print the money. What does it do? If it doesn't confirm your identity, what does it do? In a clockwork society, I predict you'll hear more of this, that there'll be the new distinction for, you have this talk about big government and small government, that's now meaningless. It's a meaningless left versus right, uni-party, spaghetti, confetti of notions. Most of them old. We're talking 20th century, right? All of the isms. What you're going to get is on-chain versus off-chain. And the government should only handle those things that can't feasibly done on-chain through code and market dynamics. The crucial point here is not just talking code. Within all of these blockchain projects are significant investments in economic theory and game theory and incentives, right? Because we know if you show us the incentive, I can predict the outcome. Right? And so we're looking at a much lighter touch. You set the rules of the game and you let the game play out. You set the climate, not the weather. So much of our regulation is simply trying to fix the fact that it rained there. And that's expensive to do. When what you really want is a reasonably dry climate. Government should not do those things, best handled by what they call the fiduciary code of a blockchain. Many of you will know blockchains are slow and expensive. Why? Because every computer is sharing every transaction with every other computer, and the ledger is every transaction saved and saved and saved. And so it's slow, that's expensive. But what you're buying out of that, when people say that Bitcoin, the electricity cost of Bitcoin is horrendous, it's far less than the electricity cost of printing fiat currency. And it's certainly far less than the electronic cost of the trust layer required to give credence to your, to give credence, to make it real. Right? For the intersubjective to work, it's not just the paper. I can't just print the paper and that's a cost exercise in itself. Now I've got serial numbers to keep track of, and now I've got cryptographic stuff I embed in my paper, and now I've got police to police fraud and bankers to issue it and all this stuff, right? That's expensive. And worse, it's no longer working. Right? We sense this. Our society's starting to break down. Why? Because we're so large and we're so diverse that beyond clan and kin, you can't trust people. Our government, well, it leads to politicians who have what they call entitlements, who then abuse those entitlements. And amongst themselves, they think that that's really right and proper. Why? Because they don't deal with enough of people like you and me to learn that it's not proper to get someone pregnant and call them a partner and still all of this stuff. Right? It's the trust. What we want is less need to trust. We want more trustlessness. And blockchain and smart contracts and AI can potentially give us that. We're looking at new emphasis on wealth creation. In our current society, the wealthy people are the gatekeepers and the middlemen. I'm old enough to remember when bankers were beige cardigan wearing, boring people in town who didn't earn all that much. They were clerks who standards on. Now they're masters of the universe. Why? Because it turns out that giving your money to someone else who wants your money is a really profitable business. I'm a middleman, I'm playing both ends. It's awesome. I get really rich. I can pump stocks to you and short the same stock to you. And I win both ways. I'm a middleman. Who knew that it was so hard to give other people's money to other people? But that's what a bank is doing. Lawyers, accountants, look at the growth in accountants, look at the huge need. The enormous army of accountants, the enormous cost of filing your annual tax return. If you've got a company, it's $1,500, $2,000 a year, regardless of what you've done, just to comply. And you've got to do it every year. And it's off to your accountant to make it happen. And then it's GST every quarter. It's a manufactured money-making machine. But it's not the accountant's fault. They're providing a really useful service, and the service is trust. It's the trust layer. The social scaling, the source of all our wealth and progress. That's why they're wealthy, because what they're providing is a really important service. You wish it wasn't so, because what you end up with is massive transaction costs. Every time you want to do something, you've got to go talk to a gatekeeper or a middleman, and that's a cost. In my space as a lawyer, you don't want to, if you want to start up a venture, you don't want to have to go to a lawyer and spend 10 grand on legal fees just to start. That's a moat that you've got to jump, and many people don't jump it. And many people don't even try, and they do it wrong, and that's unfair. In a clockwork society, wealth will increasingly accrue to those who make and create, not to those who approve and facilitate. Right? If this vision holds true, you can just make it happen the same way that you can buy and sell your Bitcoin without having to go to a stockbroker. The reason why investing in this crypto market is such a roller coaster, hair-raising ride is no one has to go to their broker and get approval to make stuff happen. Previously, it was a 1 to 2 to 3 day process. Ring your broker, they ring someone else on the stock floor, they sell the stocks, the trades are settled, 3 days later you get your stuff. Bitcoin, well, depending on the state of the moon pool, is reasonably instant. If you're dealing in XRP, it's 3 seconds. Whoa! Woo! That's the absence of middlemen. That's people being able to do it themselves. I think it's a very exciting vision. We get new markets to buy and sell goods and services. The Lydian kings of old, if any of you have heard of the phrase riches croesus, right? So the ancient Romans used to talk about this. Lydian kings in central Turkey, they became massively wealthy when they invented coins. They took their gold and coined them, tokenized gold. And this became such a wonderful innovation, so much trade, so much increase in production and wealth and just money flowing through the system, they became enormously wealthy. Blockchain allows for the tokenization on a whole new scale. The tokens, the digital tokens, allow for micropayments. Micropayments allow for micro markets, right? Seeing, things like your car that has a rain sensor on it that turns the windscreen wipers on. You hook that up to a blockchain database and you get paid in tokens for allowing weather people to track when your wipers are on and how fast they're going. You would be able to tokenise your privacy. At the moment you give Facebook all of your data for free and they've become massively wealthy off what you gave away for free. As I say, if the product's free, you're the product. The reason why you're giving away for free is the transaction cost involved in monetising your privacy is just too large for the service that you're trying to acquire. So you give away for free. Blockchain allows for tokenisation. There are projects now looking at this where your data, you could choose how much of your data you allow companies to access. And companies wanting access to your data would pay in tokens directly to you for the right to view particular levels of your data. We'll be able to collect all that and build their AI models on what ads you should show, etc. The point is you're getting paid, not Facebook. You eviscerate the middleman. So if we can track things, we can trade them, and if we can trade them costlessly or near zero cost, we get new markets and new sources of wealth and potentially new sources of taxation. Right, in a Clockwork society, you don't fill out a tax form, you don't go through all that rubbish. It's a token that comes out automatically in your various transactions. One of the hidden aspects of this is that politics will become the new bull market. Right? Everything becomes politics. Why? If you've ever been a member of a rowing club, you know that politics is the fight over control of the Commonwealth. Right? There's one good boat, and all the other boats are rubbish. And who gets the good boat? Politics. Politics determines who gets it, not who's the fastest rower or anything like that. It's just a fight over the common asset that the club owns that everyone wants. It's the same with society. Tax revenue, we've got the taxes. Politics is the fight over how much of the wealth should be captured and how it should be redistributed. In Clockwork society, the enormous wealth and power is provided by the blockchain, smart contracts, AI. Right? You've got utilities, you've got not people generating the wealth, you've got systems and infrastructure. You've got a common wealth that's providing the backbone for what everyone does. Bitcoin proves this. If you spend any time in crypto Twitter, just the politics that goes on around Bitcoin with its soft forks and its hard forks and its Lightning and its Bitcoin Cash, or its Bcash and its Bitcoin and Bitcoin Core and all of these, that's politics. Right? There's no way of sorting that out. That's just a fight over the Commonwealth. AI is particularly susceptible to this because the owner of the biggest database wins. AI is chewing down on massive data sets, looking for patterns, learning algorithms that get better at finding the patterns. Whoever has the data has the best AI. And as AI is increasingly being applied to things like law, we're ending up in a situation where large tech companies know more about the operation of the legal system than the judges or the courts or the lawyers. And you end up with the risk that that person owns your justice system. It owns the data that allows for the various determinations. That is going to lead to a political fight. There is evidence for this already. Again, you will see calls at the moment to regulate tech companies. The tech companies are trying to cut down on robots, they're trying to cut down on what they call fake news, they're trying to cut down on hate speech, they've got all of this censorship layer that they are bringing to YouTube, bringing to Twitter, bringing to Facebook. You guys are a victim of it. Facebook won't show cryptocurrency ads, right? So you can't advertise your group on Facebook. This is leading to people saying, this is not right. Facebook and Twitter and Google and Instagram and so on are social tools, they're utilities. They're communal goods and they should be regulated in the same way as utilities. I can't shut off electricity to someone just because I don't like their political views. You shouldn't be able to shut off your Facebook to someone whose political views you don't like. We've got universal basic income. This Mark Zuckerberg is pushing this quite strongly. Why? Because he knows what robots are going to do. He's invented an AI system. His little AI in negotiations, it's taught itself to lie. Right? The pattern recognition has become that good. It goes, well, in this situation, humans normally lie. They tell a fib. What's the highest you're prepared to pay? Oh, I better lie here. Right? That's kind of a bit scary. But it's getting so good, he knows that there's going to be a whole bunch of people who are not only unemployed, but are unemployable. The jobs they like doing, the robots can do better. And he's looking at universal basic income as the potential solution. Right? That's income redistribution. That's everything coming into a great big pot and being distributed to people just enough for them to be able to continue to buy his services. In the future, we can expect intense political fights over ownership, control, wealth redistribution, combination blockchain, smart contracts, AI technology. As these things get going, who owns the blockchain? Who governs the blockchain? Who gets to run it? Who gets to tax it? All of these things will become their political fights. we've probably already begun the next long war. In his book, The Shield of Achilles, Philip Bobbert outlines how the interplay of technology and warfare leads to new conceptions of government. Once I invent cannons, castles become redundant. Right? Once I move to mass armies, I now needed a mass government capable of sustaining those armies. And that's the government, the nation state of the 20th century was born, where we needed the masses either to do the work or to defend the realm. And that moved to everyone getting one vote. One person, one vote. Why? Because each person is necessary to do the work or to defend. It's not clear. Parliamentary democracies won the Long War. He sees the Long War as being this fight, basically First World War, Second World War, Vietnam, Korean War, fall of the Berlin Wall was the end of the Long War. And it was a fight between different forms of government over the nation state. Is it going to be a parliamentary democracy? Is that the best way to organise it? Is it going to be communism? Is it going to be fascism? And lucky for us that parliamentary democracy won out. Right? But that's the heyday. What comes next? Blockchain smart contracts, this technology suite, is probably the fuel for the next long war. It's probably the cannon. It's probably the mass army that sees the end of the nation state. It's possible to look at Donald Trump as the last gasp of the nation state, the pushback against globalisation, the pushback against intermeshing, the reassertion of territorial boundaries, the assertion that the nation matters. Right? That's nation state. There are other conceptions, market states and so on. Bitcoin was founded by anti-government libertarians. They dream of a peer-to-peer future, and they're crazy. They won't stop till they get it. Right? They're believers. It's not clear that parliamentary democracies are best suited to a clockwork society. We've got already with our social media and the capacity for AI to hack our own brains. You know, how social media, you like this, so you'll see more of that. You like this person, so you'll see more of people like that. And hey presto, you've got a bubble. And going back, what's important to human progress? The intersubjective. And now I've got two groups that have vastly different agreed realities. Trump is Hitler, Trump is awesome. Trump's a moron, Trump's a 4D chess genius. That's two movies on two different screens. That's just different intersubjective. That is different tribes. That is us not being able to handle what social media is doing to how we interact. What comes next? It's not clear. It's not clear what form of government, because it's not just what form of government looks best, it's what form of government outcompetes all the others. Is it going to be something like what we've got, or is it going to be China, where everything's for the state? Who knows? All right. Grand and glorious vision, back to making money out of blockchain projects. Yep. This is what everyone's doing. Tokenise all things, right? You should blockchain that. We'll see. And everyone's looking for the unicorn. 100 times unicorn. If you have a look, most of the blockchain projects have no revenue model outside of their ICO. Right? They tokenise, and the critique is you don't need the token. All you needed was a database, or all you needed was the distributed ledger. You didn't actually need the token. And ICOs have now become problematic. Many of the ICOs are actually securities. They should have followed fundraising laws. They should have issued prospectuses. Because it's an ICO and because it's not a share in a company, in Australia the prospectus you'd have to issue is a prospectus for a managed investment scheme. Managed investment schemes are prohibitively expensive, deliberately so people can't create them. You need independent trustees and all kinds of guff, right? Tremendously hard. Most blockchain projects have no real users, and some would say no real use, and they're still in development. Right? You go and look at the suite, the token, you know, they've got ICO token sale closed. Excellent. Next, we will launch a beta in October 2017. And it's March. And that box is not yet ticked on their website. All right, they haven't launched it. Many of the blockchain platforms are science experiments. That is, they're people looking for different ways of dealing with some of the inherent trade-offs in the blockchain space. Do you get security? Do you get scalability? Do you get speed? How do we manage these things? Do I have a consensus protocol like Ripple? Do I have proof of work? Do I have proof of stake? Do I have a hybrid? Do I have IOTA's ridiculous tangle? Who knows? There are currencies, Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Monero, Dash, Litecoin. These things are, they're in use. There are merchants who will accept them. There's a major banking group that's got behind Bitcoin Cash, the Japanese SBI Ripple group. So these things have use. I turn my computing power and electricity into a token that people will then accept in exchange for goods and services or for cash. So they're certainly being used, but outside of those, the ICO space, it's kind of questionable. The biggest opportunity seems to be in smart contracts, because to build a blockchain is seriously hard work. Seriously hard work. And why reinvent the wheel? Why not run a token on the Ethereum blockchain, which is what most people are doing? It automates transactions, relationships. Again though, all of these smart contract companies don't have business models. They're not earning money outside of the ICO that they raised in the first place. So either the token goes up in value or they run out of cash and crash. And again, ICOs, the regulators are crashing down on them. What are they looking at? All of these, so I've looked at a bunch of websites. Examples are move money internationally more quickly, transfer securities, serve as a secure ledger for tracking assets, next generation mobile banking, digital gift cards, create automated insurance contracts, issue central bank currencies digitally. It's or tokenise everything. That's what we'll do with our smart contracts. Some examples. The only project with a revenue model and a digital token is Ripple. There's a private company, centralised company, developing proprietary payment software on top of a public blockchain. Not only does it charge banks up to $10 million per licence for its software, it's the owner of the majority of the XRP tokens, and it's progressively making those more valuable and selling them off. Its owners are billionaires. Right. Hands down. Probably most successful. They've got competitors, companies that are selling blockchain services. So their revenue model is fee for service. Chain.com, R3, both of these companies are in the finance space. You can see how moving money around is a major valuable use case. Why is it a major valuable use case? It's a $27 trillion problem. When you go and pay for something and your credit card says, yes, you've paid it, you haven't, you've paid, but the merchant hasn't got the money and won't actually get the money for 3 days. If I want to send money to Singapore, the quickest way for me to do it is put the cash in a briefcase and fly it there and give it to somebody. The banking system moves that real money incredibly slowly. And what banks do is they keep $27 trillion worth of funds in banks all around the world just so they can do business with each other. I've got, in Australia, I want to buy something in Mexico, I now need the Mexican currency. That bank has to have Mexican currency already on deposit in a bank in Mexico, and it's just sitting there, it's graveyarded. $27 trillion worth of working capital to make that happen. That's a big problem to solve, and if blockchain solves that problem and $27 trillion worth of money flows back into the economy, God help us. These blockchains are permission, which means the users are agreeing to use it, they're agreeing who's allowed to use it, and that's the way they manage trust. The problem with permission blockchains is you introduce third-party risk. I now have to trust the other members. They can create their own digital tokens on these blockchains, which means they go in, fill out I've just created 1 million XRC. Scott Chamberlain digital token, you have to trust me that that's worth anything, and I wouldn't.
That's why I used to pay your pocket money, right?
But they work for certain use cases, right? Where the parties know each other, and we don't need it decentralised and free to the outside world. We just agree amongst ourselves that these things will be traded. That's a way of keeping track of everything. Agrello, this platform, smart contracts, very interesting because they're looking at it from a very legal point of view. They want to have user-friendly rental agreements, loan agreements, employment service agreements. They're going to integrate their platform with other blockchains, beginning with Metaverse and Ripple. Again, funded by a token. There's a token, that's the gas that you pay to use the smart contract platform. Proppy, I don't know how this company does what it does, being a lawyer. I know how hard it is to transfer property. I know how difficult it is to do it as between New South Wales and ACT. I know how difficult it is to do it if you've got foreign investors who need approval. And they say they mirror the existing land titles database, so they're not plugged into the land titles database, they're doing something to try and mirror it, right? Again, you can see the problem here. This is the trusted third party. I have to go to the government, do a title search, and then take that title search and mirror it on my blockchain. And then when you sell the property to someone, I have to take the knowledge that you've sold it and go back to the land titles and let them know. Trusted third party. Security hole, lawyer magnet. Runs on the Ethereum blockchain. It's funded by its own token. Again, required to use the service. My wish, this started off as my will, but I imagine they changed it because they couldn't get the domain name. Takes you to a suburban law firm in Tennessee. Again, looking at a series of smart contracts driven initially out of wills, trying to let you manage your estate. You die, your executor comes along, and instead of going through the laborious process of organising probate, pushes a button and the smart contract makes the assets transfer. Again, I cannot conceive how they make that work, given how difficult it is to do probate in certain circumstances. Civic is an example of a specialty coin looking at identity. And again, it has this real-world on-chain membrane problem. The identity is being confirmed in the real world by someone, and we're repurposing that confirmation. Right? For one transaction, your identity was confirmed, so let's now put that on the blockchain as a confirmed identity. And let's build that up over time, and it will become more and more reliable that you are who you say you are. Where would I focus my attention? I'm a lawyer. Laws deal with existence, ownership, rights and responsibilities. I like to look at transactions and relationships as a whole, and I think that's where the future of blockchain has enormous promise in the legal space. Existence ownership, whatever you can do to get registries and put them on the blockchain, the fact you own something should be, you blockchain that stuff, right? Your identity, the fact that you exist. If someone can solve the problem of identity on the blockchain, that is a massively powerful improvement to our capacity for trustlessness, for social scaling. Right? The problem Bitcoin solved was double spending of money. We need someone to solve the problem of double spending of people. Because once I know that you are you and no one else can be you, I get rid of identity fraud, I get rid of voter fraud. Right? If I can trust who I'm dealing with, that's an enormously powerful and valuable thing in our society. It is the new modern day doomsday book. Copyright. Ownership of copyright is just so hard and so problematic and so difficult for people who create it. And in the future world, where we're going to have to be doers and makers and creators of copyright, and our capacity to monetize our creations, that tokenisation is going to be so important. So registries for copyright, fantastic. Transactions, anything that you're going to buy and sell, Anything that's complicated, get rid of the middleman. I need to buy a house, I need to go see a real estate agent lawyer. No, we blockchain it. That's smart contracting. And you just do it. I can see, hey, you own that house. I own this much Bitcoin. Let's. Excellent. I now own that house. That'd be awesome. DEXs, so distributed exchanges. Right? Not this centralised, right? Trusted third parties, security holes and lawyer magnets. The current crypto exchanges, you know, there's fraud. They get hacked. They lose stuff. They have APIs that people hijack and automate and plunge the price and do all sorts of good stuff. Already in this space, trusted third party, distributed. And the same goes for investments, just that the capacity for you to be able to buy and sell stuff, to look at what you own without having to go to a financial advisor, without having to go to somebody that's a gatekeeper. Rental agreements, loans, disputes. A court process is not all that difficult. It would be fantastic to have it reasonably more automated. Relationships, employment. Can you imagine the Australian minimum wage award system turned into a series of smart contracts? You're guaranteed to be paid. You're guaranteed to get your super. There's no capacity for the employer to cheat the system and not pay you, and not pay the overtime, and not pay you the cash, and not pay your super. Right? Imagine the benefit of not having all of the layers of HR and police and Fair Work Ombudsman and Fair Work Australia and unions, all of that trust layer. Divorce. Yep, there's no trust in divorce. It'd be good for it to be trustless. Corporate governance. When you're running a company, when you're launching a company, all of that stuff, shareholders, bringing the company secretary, wanting to get a copy of the share certificate. No. Blockchain. Taxation, membership organisations, all your membership rights and payments and privacy in Facebook. I would so love to see Facebook eviscerated. Right? I'd love to earn data. I'd love to earn tokens off my existence. Right? I don't want to be the product. I want to be the market. I want to be the market maker for the access to who I am and what I do and what ads I should see. That's possible. All right. I thought I had a funny slide to finish on as a big point, but obviously I don't. So we might just go back to that one. Maybe I sound a bit evangelical. You're not going to blockchain all your problems. You're going to blockchain the ones where trustlessness is most important. You're going to blockchain those where we have information shared ourselves beyond our capacity to scale socially. And if we can achieve that, I think it's an enormously bright and interesting future. Thank you.
Are you optimistic, or I mean, politics is going to play a huge part of all this?
That's my key point, right? My key point is we're heading to politics is the new bull market, right? Where it's just going to matter so much over how the means of production are owned, controlled, distributed and taxed. In a way that's different to how we look at it now, right? So we've just been through a process of saying there's a whole bunch of stuff government used to do that government shouldn't do, right? So we can take power stations and we can make them privately owned and regulate them. We can take roads and make them privately owned and regulate them, right? And we've largely allowed our personal data to be privately owned and not even regulated. And so data is becoming the most valuable resource. It's the new oil. And it's owned in silos already. The oil's already been mined and it's owned by very few companies. That's a political fight to come. Is Facebook a utility? Are companies like Facebook utilities? But beyond all of that, I can simply see when robots are doing all the work, you don't want the robot owned by 1% of the people in the world. You don't want the data owned by 1% of the people in the world. I don't think you do. That's a different world, right? So you have a potential society where that kind of resource is owned communally, right? It's government owned. Right? The government owns the data. Government owns the backbone. That's a different society than the one that we've got now. But it's the society you probably need to have if you want a universal basic income. Because otherwise the government will tax it. The problem for the government taxing it is that it just up and leaves. It could be anywhere in the world and is where it doesn't get taxed. We're in for an enormous number of new problems because the nation-state problems the nation-state solved were 20th century problems. It was the century of the masses. We're moving to the century of the peer-to-peer, and God knows what that looks like. But I'm optimistic. I mean, it's never been a better time to be alive.
Guys, how did you like the lecture?
It was really good. Really knowledgeable. Like, made it very simple. Broke it down.